Hello, everybody. I hope you hear me well. I think you can see me. Hello to everybody who's out there, to all the UX designers, and of course, our professional community around the world. Glad to see you again, and welcome to the first episode of our deep dive series this year, in which we present the award-winning solutions and teams of the UX Design Awards Spring Season 2023. My name is Arke Rudolph. I'm head of strategy at International Design Center Berlin and director of the UX Design Awards. For everyone watching us on LinkedIn, post your questions in the chat and we'll bring them into the Q&A with our guests. And if you join us on Zoom, please mute your mic, turn on your camera, and feel free to join the Q&A later on. For our events, actually, you can join us almost every week. There is live talks with award-winning designers and teams, and of course, inspiring conversation with our jury members. So we hope to offer you valuable insights about design processes, about developments in the UX field and beyond that, and of course, help you grow as professionals. You can find all of our events, on our website, uxdesignawards.com, on LinkedIn and YouTube. And actually, if you're working on great experiences, why not consider entering the awards by the end of May? You can have a look at our website for more information. And who knows, we might be welcoming you for our next winner events this fall. But today, my guests will walk us through their project Planner, which was recognized by the jury with the UX Design Awards product in this year's first competition season. The jury was particularly impressed by how this application is optimizing a complex production process, as well as combining internal operations with external data sources. Why this is key and a win for the staff, the company, and the environment all at once will be revealed by our guests today. I'm very happy to welcome live from Heidelberg Materials, Senior UX Researcher, Sarah Gelb-Wiegand, UX Design Lead, Florian Jörgensen, and the head of the team, Product Owner, Daniil Starikov. Welcome to today's deep dive to all three of you. How are you?
Great.
Fine, thanks.
Nice, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. And by this quick introduction, I'd like to hand over the mic to you and of course the screen. Take it away from here. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arke. I think I speak for all the three of us in saying that we are very proud of being here, and we're very happy that we can today present you what our tool is all about. And I have the task to start with giving you a quick introduction about what cement production is about, so that you know what we're talking about. It's not an easy thing to understand, but I hope I can make it short. Then I will talk a little bit about what we did in terms of research and how we ended up designing this tool and why we designed the tool. And of course, talking about the user who we designed it for. And then Florian will give you an impression about what the tool actually is. Okay. Florian, as you're already sharing, right, we're starting with the research and a little bit with a foundation. And you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so how is cement produced? In a nutshell, in a very, very I hope short version, what we do is we dig limestone out of a quarry and blast it there, actually load it and transport it to the actual cement plant with a really long transportation line. There we crush it with big machines. Then we mix it and grind it. We mix it with things like clay and sand and so on. And then it ends up in a really big oven that we call the kiln. It can be about 70 meters long. It's really hot. It's about 1,400 degrees. And in this kiln, the product is transferred into something that's called clinker. It's a very hot black stone-like thing that needs to be cooled afterwards. Of course, all that heat needs to be taken away so that it can be ground again and mixed again. This time we mix it with things like gypsums and additives, depending on what actual product we would like to produce. When you talk about products, we talk about types of cement, because there are many, many types of cement with different attributes and different qualities. And then, of course, we store it in big silos, and at the end of the day, we ship it. Or sometimes, or often, especially in Germany, our customers ship it themselves. So they come to our sites, to our plants, and say, hey, we want to have this and that cement in this and that quantity. Can you please give it to us? And this is kind of one of the issues that we were facing when we were designing the tool. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so what did we do and why did we do it? So Heidelberg Materials, back then still Heidelberg Cement, we had identified that we needed to become somehow more digital in our production process to, of course, stay competitive, to attract younger employees, because nobody wants to work in a really dusty, old-fashioned environment when you're young and starting your career. And of course, it's always about saving costs. And when we talk about saving costs, it's also about having a least environmental impact with our products. And as you can see, when I talk about some dusty, old-fashioned thing behind me, you can see an actual cement plant, and you see it's really rough. It's a really rough environment that people are working in. And of course, we wanted to attract more people. We started a really big project that was kind of called Digital Cement Plant, where we wanted to find out, okay, where or what are the opportunities to digitize cement production, and where should we start? What are the points that we can say, okay, we can jump in here with a tool, jump in there with a tool, and really have an impact in production, and also assist our employees, to help them in their daily lives. What we did in terms of research was we had, first of all, one really big on-site research. So we went into a cement plant for nearly 5 days, a couple of colleagues, and we were shadowing people. We were talking with people. We were basically having a look at the whole production, what was going on, where were the pain points, what was still really, really slow, cumbersome, and what was going on in the production itself. Of course, we had many, many hours of recordings and pictures and transcripts and so on. And from all that information, we deducted general tasks, needs, pain points along the functions and departments to see, okay, where are the digital opportunities that we could take as a starting point. And we did find more opportunities than only, so to say, the planner product. But this is where a big part of the work started. What we then did was we had a validation with peer plants. So we reached out to other international plants, to 2 plants we had the chance to visit, but then Corona hit, and so we couldn't go there anymore, and we had to do it remotely. And they confirmed the hypotheses that we had and the information that we had found, and also, of course, gave some different perspectives on the findings that we already had. And then what we ended up with was, the starting points where we could say, go in and say, okay, here we're going to develop a digital product that will really assist our production and help us in transforming our plants to, in a digital way. Next slide, please. So our starting point was mixing and grinding and storing. That was the focus for the planner product. And why was it especially this part of the production? That's really easy, because this part of the production really consumes a lot of energy, and energy prices are really, really fluctuating a lot. So this is something that needs to be planned thoroughly, and the mills are a major factor of variable costs, a lot of cost saving potential, and I will tell you about this in a second. There was a lot of other potential to work on, so to say. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So who were the users that we identified we wanted to do something for? First of all, it was our persona Brad. He's the production supervisor grinding, and his task is to plan the running times of the assets, or so of the mills, basically, and plan the production volumes of the different cement types. The number of cement types can vary between plants, and he needs to know a lot of information. He needs to know the upcoming sales volume. That might be an issue, actually, to plan production. He needs to know the silo fill levels. So how full is my silo already? Can I produce? Do I have to produce? He needs to know energy prices to know, okay, is this now a really expensive production, or should I produce at a different time to have savings in production? And basically his target is a full cement silo. He's satisfied when the silo is full and when customer demand is met. And then we have Martin. Martin is the control room operator, and he operates the whole plant, not only the mills, but also the big kiln according to production plan. He has an overview about everything. He has, like you see also in the picture, about 20 screens around him with a lot of information. And he has to achieve production KPIs, of course, that are given to him by the production manager. And he needs to have a really good overview about the production plan that he can stick to, and he needs to know what to do and how to mill the products. So the problem characteristics that we were facing were we needed a precise production planning so that we could make it as efficient as possible and as well usable as possible. But we have a demand that is very hard to predict, because customers, especially in Germany, will just show up whenever they like. There is also no standard demand forecast guideline. There are some rules that can be applied, but forecasting is always a different thing. Then production planning was still a manual and asynchronous and paper-based process. So what we saw was that the person planning the production was getting into the control room, having a printed Excel sheet in front of him and giving this to the control room operator. And whenever something had to be changed in that production planning, he changed it and then printed it again and then handed it over again. So this was really something that we knew, okay, here we can do something about this. Also, the grinding process is, as I said, really highly energy consuming, and the prices of energy are constantly fluctuating. And all in all, with all that variables that we need to take into account when planning production, it's a really complex optimization scenario that's hard to do just by one person or two person, because it's far beyond what any human could do as a task for planning. And from here, I'm going to hand over to Florian, who will show you what he designed.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That was a nice introduction. So let's head over to the UX design and how those requirements that we discovered translates into an app. And you heard it before, like, what are the main factors that we need to look at? Production planning mainly consists of those 4 pillars. So we have the demand forecast, basically how much do I need to deliver? We have the stock levels. I need to know at all times how much of my materials I currently have in my silos or stockpiles. I need to know what are the electricity prices, and I need to know which machines I have at hand and can I use them? Are they broken? Are they running, or like that? So basically, what we did, we translate those pillars into screens. When we start with stock, you see it on the left. That is the first screen you see when you open the app. You see all of the silos that are currently in your plant and the fill level of them. You see like where the minimum stock level is, after which this turns red. So you directly know this is an issue here. And I also see like how all of this translates into a reach. So you see this tiny reach number here, and you know like how long can I go on with this material until I need to start producing again. So here I have like a direct impression of where I need to act. But the thing is, this is basically seen in a nutshell. So I need to combine all of those pillars that I said before. But here is basically the starting point of my journey towards production planning. This is basically categorized in the different material categories that I have, and I can drill into each of them and see the overall stock development for this material. So I see like where is material delivered, and then the chart goes down, and where is it produced, and then it goes up. I have different timeframes that I can select, and that is basically the stock view. There is another material type that we have at a plant, which is the one that we don't produce. So obviously we also need materials that we don't produce ourselves. And here we also need to look at how is it delivered to my plant? How is the current status of it? Can I order directly at the vendor? Things like that. So we have this stock development graph enriched with information regarding the deliveries. And we also have like recommendations on when to refill this material based on the different times that we have basically laid out in the system. So here we have a suggestion that for the projected stock development and the lead time, so the lead time is basically the time that the vendor needs to refill this material for you. So when it's delivered by ship, that can be very long. If it's delivered by a truck, for example, that can be very short. So that's very different. And it always suggests to me automatically when this should happen. And here I have the overview when this happened or if this didn't happen at all. So these are the two different types of materials in general. So the ones that I produce and the ones that I need to get delivered to my plant. And then Sarah talked about the forecasts that I need to know. So the electricity price in most Western countries is fluctuating because it's bound to the energy market. So you don't have the same price all the time, but you rather have like a different price every 15 minutes. I mean, this interval is also different from country to country, but in Germany it's 50 minutes. And you can basically see how different it can be. So it can be very good to produce at a certain amount of time, but it can be very bad like an hour after. So you really need to have a good view on when do I need to produce? Because as Sarah also mentioned, it's very energy intensive what we are doing here. So this is like a crucial factor of knowledge in the part of producing that material. Then we need to know like when will be the demand very high, when will it be very low? In this case, I can see by cement type when this will be. So I see it for every day. Like how much do I need to produce? And this all basically factors into the stock levels that we saw before. In the end, this is basically the heart of the software, let's say. And here we have those factors all combined. We see at the top the stock levels now basically aggregated to a tinier view, so you can see everything side by side. You see like how much do I have in stock and when will it run out of stock. I see like on which material or on which assets it's produced. And I see on the schedule like where the prices will be high, where will they be low, and then like will there be maintenance, for example? Can I produce at that particular amount of time? Then I can basically take those cement types and in real time put them here. And all of those figures on the top change immediately because it takes into account what I just did. So I can drag and drop, I can make them smaller or bigger, and everything is reflected immediately. Not only on the stock levels, but also on the electricity chart, let's say. Here I directly see like how much of electricity will all of this add up to. So in this particular case, I know that this mill and this mill and this mill have certain throughput, so I can produce an amount of material in a certain amount of time. and I know how much energy it takes to produce that material, so it can translate into a direct figure of how much energy I need. And then I see like how much did I plan, which is basically this line here, and how much did I purchase, and does it match? And then we also have this peak load windows where I should never basically produce into, because it is already like a window of energy level that I shouldn't do. But maybe more to that, we can later ask Daniil. He's like a bit more into that. So that is basically a very complex planning process. And what I did here, I only have 3 mills because it's better to look at in this particular view, but most likely you would have like 10 or even more assets to plan to. And this can be very complex. This is why we have like the next one. Let me switch to that, which is like, we call it the optimizer. And this one is an algorithm that takes all the factors into account. And every day at 10:30, it gives you a suggestion of a plan for the following 7 days, which most likely performs better than the one that you have planned manually, because you, as a human, you cannot take all the different factors into account all the time. There is like a certain limit of cognitive load you have, and the machine doesn't have that, so we can support you in this. And this is what we do. But still, the user remains in the driver's seat, and he can see like, okay, at this particular point of time, my optimized plan, which is the blue one, performs against the last safe plan, which is the last one that I did, in a certain way for each of those materials, and also aggregated in total. If I'm not happy with this, I can recalculate it, which is also an expensive task, but it can be done. And then if I want, I can also submit my plan of electricity, which all of this translates to directly to the energy provider. So where this is possible in those countries, we have also a direct connection to the electricity provider, and we can directly submit these plans there. So this is basically what we are doing currently, but we also have plans for the future. And what we want to do is not only what we see here, but these are the ones that I can maybe talk about. So one, we want to have like a portfolio simulation where we simulate all the yearly targets with different recipes. And we basically show throughout the whole journey that you do in the planning process, we want to show what does it translate to in terms of CO2. So we want to make this transparent. We as Heidelberg Materials have like an ambition towards 2030 that we want to reduce the emissions that we currently have, because most of you might know that what we are doing is very CO2 intensive. So we want to reduce that, and we want to basically give the user all the tools in doing that. Then we have another business line, which is aggregates, and we want to integrate with them as well. They currently have different tools, and we want to integrate them with us. We want to have like a better fleet management, so we can do that in a very sophisticated way. And most importantly, we have this long-term planning. So right now we have like a very limited scope of time in which we are planning. And this works for a lot of plants that we are currently working with. But there are others that have like a longer time frame of planning, which goes for months. And here we need to support them with a better way of working. So that is basically what we are doing. And I look at the time, 20 minutes, just in time. So I think next up, we can go to Q&A.
Right, wonderful. Maybe you can stop screen sharing so we can see each other. Thanks a lot. Well, thanks for the brief intro. I think there's a lot to talk about because it's a complex solution. First of all, I'm wondering how long did this project take altogether? Can you give us an outline on the duration? Maybe from briefing to execution. Is there something?
Yeah,
Daniil, you're getting ready.
Yeah. So basically, the idea was from 2020. We started very roughly from the demand predictions, which was the origin of the project. So it was the poor data science project at the beginning. And then from that point, different parts of Planner evolved, and what Florian just presented is the current status until now. But we have already 60 plans live. That means that the maturity of the product was achieved quite quickly, I would say, after 1 year.
That's a pretty brief timescale for a complex project such as this. What do you think? How do you see this in comparison to others that you worked on?
I would say that it was combined with a lot of freedom at the beginning. So that such digital products was a very early initiative of Heidelberg. And therefore, in the first years, there were no big structures, any organizational backgrounds of that. Therefore, I think with all this freedom, it was very easy to develop the product. And then as it became the live system, we actually used in the production in the plants, then somehow it slows down because then you have to invest in your security, you have to invest it in stability. We actually have the control room operators in all the plants watching at this product every time. So we need to ensure that it's actually always up. And this slows down the things. And of course, during the time, other products are evolving, and you see the opportunities to collaborate with them as well. And therefore, you are slower, but you then gain additional ideas and gain additional directions for the product development just through existing efforts already in the company.
Right, and everybody out there who are listening now live on LinkedIn, please send or just post your questions to the chat of the event, and we'll bring them in, of course. You said that it was a project with a lot of freedom. So it was rather an exploratory pilot project for Heidelberg Cement. So what was the beginning of it? Who pushed this actually, and who gave you this freedom? Because that's always very difficult in a large corporation as a setup.
I think it is the sort of experiment for such a, like Heidelberg Cement is producing building materials. It's a very conservative industry, and I think for us it was very exciting journey for developing part of the products, but also for the users, for the cement plants, it was something new, and therefore all the part which was explained by Sarah, or the UX research where we actually were in the plant, it was already very surprising for users as well. And it was driven by the common shared motivation of all the parties, like also developers, but also of the stakeholders here in the headquarters of different departments and of the users in the plants. So I would say that the freedom came of the shared interest, and especially interest from the higher management and the board who pushed for this product and this new mindset of the software development.
Yes, I guess it wouldn't be absolutely possible at all to do such a project without such pushing and such effort and above all the support from key management, because it is something relatively new in the industry. As you said, there was quite a leap to be done. Sarah mentioned that before, planning was done even on paper, maybe on Excel sheets. So it sounds like a relatively big leap towards this kind of planning software for the users, for people who are using it now, and it's being rolled out as we speak. So which core challenges, or maybe biggest challenges, did you meet during the process for people who were the intended users? Principally would be the planners, right? And how did you overcome these challenges?
I would say the biggest challenge, to be honest, was not in like business development or in design or research, but it was rather in change, because even though we had like a very well working demand prediction, or we had like a good algorithm in optimizing the plan, users were really reluctant in using it because they were not trusting it. So what we needed to do is really provide like data and explanation on how that system works better so that they would be able to accept it. I guess that is really like one big learning that we had during that project.
Yes, and I think we can see how big a success we have achieved, because we also had to convince the user. As I told you before, our control room operators, they already have 20 screens that they're looking on, and we often heard, oh, this is just another screen and we have to look at just more information, and to convince them that it's helpful information and it will make their lives easier. Was I wouldn't say, I think it wasn't too hard, but once we showed them what was happening, they were kind of convinced, but then there was a trust issue. So is it really doing what is it promising? Is the planning really as good as the planning that we do manually? That was one of the biggest challenges.
And yeah, and you can imagine that so the planning is developed in the iterative way. So every 2 weeks there is something new, every sprint. So you can imagine that what you saw now in the presentation by Florian was not existing at that stage, at the beginning of the project, right? So we came to the cement plant with some very initial version of the product, but then original starting point was some sort of mistrust, because like how the user should know that we will actually listen to them in the future development of the product. Yeah? And then after 1 year of collaboration, they actually started to trust us, because they realized, okay, they actually listen to what I'm saying. Actually, what I recommend to develop or what I recommend to change is then after some time, maybe not too fast, yeah, but after some time, it's actually then deployed to the production and we are responding. And this is actually the dialogue and not something thrown on them and with the statement, now use it. Yeah, and this was the mindset change also from the user side.
Okay, and they really had to learn it. So it was really uncommon for them that they get a product and then they can criticize the product, and then they can say, okay, guys, this is not what I need. I need it differently. I have this and that demand. I have this and these requirements. So we really actively had to tell them, okay, if you have an issue, if you need something, call us, tell us, write to us. We're not Microsoft. We're not giving you just any application and yeah, you have to use it the way it is, but you can contribute actively to what we are developing. And I think once they understood that, it was going really well.
And so it wasn't the 5 days of user research and then bam, there is the solution, because it might be a bit simplistic as you condense it in your presentation, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So now this sounds a bit more graspable, that you're working for a whole year and starting with maybe prototypes, MVPs, go back to the users, get their feedback, continue designing, developing, etc., etc., as we would expect it to do. So, I mean, trust is really, really a core issue. And when you work directly with people, you can show and tell, you can convince them. It takes time, as you say. But now you're rolling out also to other plants. And so you're not in touch with users there directly. So how do you onboard them there?
Actually, we are very close with the users. We have now, so overall, we have in the company 220, 240 cement plants, depending how you count the joint ventures. Yeah, the plants which are now live in the product are 60 plants, mainly from the countries which can benefit from this energy price volatility. In the future, other plants will join as well, just with more features which are not that related to the energy prices, but for other aspects of planning. And we have regular sessions with them, with the plant representatives. So every month we meet to discuss for 1 hour with a group of plants what are the points, what is disturbing, what ideas they have. Actually, it's very good discussions, also because there are several plants attending such meetings, so they discuss a lot also among them each other. You see also that the processes or conventions how to do the planning are different across the plants, and they actually do some sort of group discussion among them what's the better solution, and it's always fun to listen to. This is somehow standard process for us, but also for developing new features. We, of course, don't do them by our own. They usually result from the ideas of the plants. Yeah, so they formulate to us some idea for next thing to do. And then usually we conduct the research together with Sarah, that we invite different plants. We try to make them very different, because if you take the integrated plant with kiln or just a grinding plant without a kiln from different countries, so you mix them and you ask the same questions. And then based off their shareback, we make a proposal. Florian and Tjark do the design, and then after the design is done, we validate it with them again. And then there are some corrections, some adjustments, and then it goes to the production. So it's a very close collaboration with the users, but we should also say it's not millions of users. Yeah, it's 60 plants. Roughly 500 users using the product. So for production planners, production operators, energy managers, grinding engineers, but it's the limited number of people. And we can maintain a very good contact with them. And also by nature of the product, like if we talk about the optimizer, right? Optimizer proposes to them the production plans. So it is the optimization program with some objective function, with the constraints, right? And it calculates every night how you should produce. But sometimes the plan is not fine, right? So sometimes it's not feasible. Huh? And when the plants who are now trusting us, they call us every morning and say, look, here is your plan. It's not really feasible because yesterday my raw material delivery didn't happen as expected. I received it today, so I cannot produce in the order like you recommend to us. Can we do something about that? And then for us, it's of course the action item. Okay, now I have to consider this raw materials, what's the fuel level of the bunkers, and then we proceed with some additional development. So it is very close collaboration day by day with the users.
I'm wondering, because you're saying you're getting feedback from the plants, that will probably be like more management feedback, right? But no, you're sure? So tell me a little bit, how do you structure these feedback sessions? Because I think it's also, you mentioned beforehand, it's a very traditional, maybe top-down industry. So in order to work in such an agile way across different plants with different people on different levels, did you design a kind of process or the way of how you meet, how you feedback, how you get in touch actually also with the people working with the product itself, and not just getting the information through layers of management?
So basically, the users are really not management, not even the plant director. It's really people. If you talk to them, if you schedule a call, it will be the person who sits in this equipment gloves, you know,
the safety vests.
Safety vests, right? Because they just came to their computer from the production hall, doing something with the mill.
I think I have some of them here.
Oh, right, yeah, they like that, and they are very open. So they work. So it's very difficult work they do in the plant. It might be also exhausting, and they see now us as a part of a production process, right? So we are actually doing what influences their daily production, and therefore they are open with us, like they are open with other colleagues from the plant who are sitting nearby to them, which is a very good achievement of us. So it was not at the beginning, like I said, it evolved over time, and yeah, then they give feedback quite openly. Of course, it depends on the mentality of the plant. Some plants are jumping in and really curious now to do stuff with us. Some of them are more reluctant, or rather waiting until the product receives certain maturity or the feature is tested by other plants. Yeah, but we have plenty of them who are just call. Yeah? So I go to work and my teams starts to call, and there is a, let's say, colleague from Poland saying, okay, your optimizer did that and that, I don't like it, and then we start to discuss it. So it's very open and often driven driven discussion driven by them. But the standard process of the share work is also established. We have the sprint reviews, we have the adopters calls. In the sprint reviews, it's rather developers showing new features, so the results of the sprint. But in the adopters calls, it's more for the discussion. There they can discuss with me or with other plants what's the better solution. So it's just like rolling meetings which are attended by them regularly. Sometimes they cannot attend. If you have a problem with the kiln, then you don't go for digital department for conversation about how to improve planner. You rather work on the kiln problem. But usually they are very interested, the participation.
But of course, the team has to have a really close eye on how to prioritize things that come from the users. So we really have to see, okay, is this something that only one person mentioned, and this is a small change that will satisfy one person, but this is not how research and how development works? Or is it a major structural problem that affects more than one plant and more than one user? And is this something we could take as maybe a hint for a new feature or for a little redesign or something, to see, okay, how big would the impact be? Or is this sometimes it's also a really crucial thing just for one plant? Then of course it's always it's also important if that plant cannot use the tool anymore because of that one issue. It's of course also important, but we have to prioritize how important that feedback is that we get from the users.
And can you describe to us how do you document and how do you structure and prioritize this feedback, and how do you then bring it into the further development design process? A little bit more on the doing. Which tools do you use? What's your process then? And maybe also tell us who's involved in the core team. So which functions are working with you?
Okay. So basically, as I said, we communicate usually via Teams, via phone with the plant. So it's a feedback given us through video calls, channels, and then depending on the kind of the issue, it might be just straightforward the Jira ticket. So if we need a small adjustment, I'll put the ticket for the backlog for the next refinement with the team, and then we discuss the issue. If there is something which seems to be bigger but has to be validated, I note it in my list of the open topics, and then we discuss first with other plants, so to get the validation that it's not only one plant issue but also shared opinion by different plants. And if it is so, then we discuss it with Florian and Sarah, because the important point is also that UX team oversees other products, right? So that not only planner, but also peer products. And if you have some features which can already be reused or should be designed in a similar way because they're existing in other product, like let's say commenting feature, you shouldn't do it very different in different products, right? It should be some sort of very standardized entry field for free text, and then we see what we can reuse, what we can share with other products, and then it goes for the development. From the tools which we are using is basically Jira for backlog. We use Confluence for documentation. I would say that there are some pages where we collect the feedback like regularly, so points are coming, I just listed there. Sometimes we have a plant visit, which is also very interesting for our team members to be on site. And then from those plant visits, we typically have very intensive discussions about like also longer term features we will develop, and then we result also with a Confluence page documentation. And we use a lot of Miro board, which helps with the visualization. For example, Sarah uses this a lot for the sharebacks from the UX research rounds.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you described well like how the smaller topics work, but I think for the bigger topics, it can be basically two variants. So one is when general patterns emerge from the research we are anyway doing, then we would look at this and we will make it a topic, and then further derive actions from it and talk about it all the time, obviously. So that would be like the bottom-up approach. And then we also have, of course, top-down topics where we think about business value, like what could help us to achieve our targets. And these are also discussed, but in different rounds, like when Daniil, for example, talks to upper management. But most of the stuff, no, all of the stuff has basically general check-ins between Daniil, the UX team, and the users. So we are in constant exchange, basically. And this we do mostly via Teams and Miro. And then when it's finally decided that we move on with the topic, then we would work with Figma to create prototypes and move on from there. Yeah.
There is a detailed question from the audience, actually from Alexei Moros. Can you detail a little bit how you measure user feedback and which frameworks do you use specifically for measuring user feedbacks? A/B testing, others?
We do not use this because we don't have the user base to do this. So A/B testing would require a really, really, really big user base. So it comes down to talking in qualitative interviews with people, and we cannot, our user base is people don't always have time, but we have a really, really direct contact to our users, and we will select them and have like a row of talks of about 10, 12 talks and then derive. So we do not do quantitative feedback because we don't have the really user base to do that, and people have so many things to do. Even if we have 500 users, we will not get the sample to do it quantitatively. So we all have to do it in talks.
So it's much more person-to-person qualitative feedback and development. Do you fear that that you're missing something because you're not using the entire user base? Do you use data to somehow also keep track on what you see might be qualitatively a good way, but then also to pin it up with facts?
We are currently working, and it's on the agenda for this year, I think, to have more user statistics and analytics to back it up from the other side. So we can always listen to the user, but then we'll have to look at, okay, what's really happening. But to be honest, we're not there yet. So it's still developing.
Basically,
it sounds also like something that is quite challenging to keep track, because I didn't realize that the plans might be also on different levels, that it's not standardized. So I understand that also your challenge is you have developed a standardized business solution, a workflow planner, but the technology underpinning it, the physical technology, is on different levels from plant to plant. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And also the processes at the plants can be very different. So that is really a big challenge, not only for this product planner. I mean, we mentioned that we have a suite of products. So this is really one of the bigger challenges that we face, that it's very different and we need to somehow implement a solution that fits all of them. And that is also like a big research challenge to find out all the different ways of how work is done.
Yeah, and then bring it down to the core. So this is what they all do, and here's what everybody does in their own way. But there's always a core to the behavior and how they do it. You just have to find it.
Yeah, and we also embrace failure in these kinds of exercises. So we also had products or features that we discovered, even though we are already at prototype stage. We saw, okay, the process is too diverse. We cannot build a solution for that. And then we just stopped and looked for other use cases. So we are very research driven in that part.
And do you, so this sounds like it's actually like a rolling digitization process for Heidelberg Cement. And it sounds like there is different applications, different processes in different plants. So this is in a way feeling your way into what is, as you said, Sarah, justly, what is the core? What are the core requirements, the core functions, and how can we structure this and bring this into the best solidified solution that fits everybody somehow, right?
Yes, that's correct. And we not only have the challenge that every plant is at a different level and that they all do it differently, but we have, I think it's overall 5 main tools. Of course, they all have little features that you might call a tool as well. However, they grow closer to each other, and not every tool is rolled out in every plant. So some plants might have the one tool, some plants might have the other tools. And when they start interacting, you have to see, okay, is one tool required for the other one to draw data from, for example? This is something that we are now standing in front of. So, okay, what has to be deployed at a plant that they can use that function or that feature of a product?
Yeah, that basically also relates back to the question of quantitative research. Like, I mean, in other use cases, it's important to where to place a button to make a better conversion rate. But I mean, that's not the point where we are. We want to basically see, we look at all of this analog process and we see like what are the opportunities to digitize it and where we really create value in the whole production process. Yeah.
That's also very special about our users. So I was working before at an agency that was in the automotive business. Most of it was in the automotive business. And when I was talking to users, they were criticizing every little button and every little placement of information. And our users, they wanted to have the feature they need, see the information they want. And there's really little talk about place it here, place it there, do that little change. So that's not what they're interested in. They're interested about the whole thing and give me like the function that I need. And we're not talking about, or not so much talking about layout and talking about writing font or colors or something. That's not what the discussion is all about. The discussion is very much about the working process and how we can reflect it digitally, and a lot about how we can display information correctly for the user that they can work with it.
So can you share some insights with us about maybe some stories from the development? What surprised you most? What was the moments where you thought, wow, I never thought about this, just in terms of how to visualize this work process and how to design this workflow?
Tough question. I mean, it happens all the time. But to point my finger, kind of hard. Do you have something, Sarah?
I'm just thinking about it. So what always strikes me is how differently things are done in all the plants. So this is not just one thing that I thought, okay, I thought this worked not the way I'm seeing it here, but to see that you can approach things from so many directions. So when I was doing research on, we talked before about a longer term production planning, I was reaching out to plants and say, okay, I want to see how you do production planning. Please walk me through how you do it. Show me the files you do it in, show me the tools you do it in. And after, I don't know how many interviews we had, I was standing there and I thought, okay, I will never be able to summarize this because everybody does it differently. I saw, I don't know, dozens of Excel sheets, all laid out differently, all coming from different perspectives. And I thought, oh God, why is this happening to me? And this.
So how did you cope? What did you do?
I did what I usually do in analyzing is I start and I kind of say, okay, this is the communality between them. This is a communality between them. This is something somebody does different, but I focus on communalities. And this time I focused on each individual case to start with. So I summarized and I put down the basic findings of each individual case and reduced information until I was at the point where I saw, okay, this is something they all do, but they all do it differently. For example, they all had some representation of stock level and criticality, but they all did it differently. Some had it in a graph, some had it in red figures, some had it in bars and things going here and there, but they all had a representation of it, and that was the core. So yeah, it took a little bit more time because I had to look at every case individually and listening to what they were telling me before yeah, I could summarize it, and also this was so challenging because I had to revisit the interview and revisit the recording, because I first of all had to understand what they were saying, not only how they were doing it, but what are they actually doing there. So doing screenshots and stopping the recording, saying, okay, what is going on here? What are these figures? What is this? And explaining to myself, and then coming to the point where I could say, okay, now we have a baseline, what they all do. That was kind of challenging.
So the core here, and probably also the challenge, was that you work with operators in different countries, different cultures, different languages, etc. But the core of the solution is the workflow, right? To create one core workflow to lead people through the production process. And I'm wondering about one thing, Florian. You're the designer here. There is several menus, several pages actually in Planner that show you different amounts of information. There is stock, there is energy, there is demand, there is prediction. So how does this really help? How does Planner help people to get this into one overview? And where does the assistive technology of Planner come into play?
Yeah, I mean, the structure of Planner is made in a way that you basically can focus on each of those information bits. And then you have this one page, which is really like the productive page, the production planning, which factors all of these in. And that is how it's thought and done. But we will get to a more automated workflow when we soon basically will have in-app notifications which trigger the automatization, and then we will be able to guide the user more towards the features that he needs. Right now he is still required to click on a specific tab, which will change. Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit probably beforehand, but you probably can't tell everything about this. But this whole scenario is shouting out for assistive technology, right? This is about big amounts of data, real-time data and predictive data coming together from different sources. So it would just a solution, a case waiting for machine learning technology to come in and to actually bring forward a planning scenario that the human user only has to click to or adjust or go for. So what are the next steps that you're working on this?
We have to be really clear about the fact that even though we are trying to digitize most of the data that is inside a plant, still the process remains a physical one. So we will most likely have gaps in the data also for the next, I don't know, 10, 20 years. I cannot predict this. So what we need to do is we need to embrace the functionalities of automatization, but still we need to always be clear about that the user will be the decider in the end. So he needs to be the one that signs off a process, that is clear that there is someone responsible for this. We need to show what it means. What are we doing here? We need to display all that data, but in the end, someone needs to approve this. Someone needs to be able to make a decision, an informed decision in the end. Maybe it will not be necessary to be at the plant in the future. We don't know that. Maybe it can also be from a more central location. But this is very unclear at the moment. So I mean, we will use all the technology that we have to support the user in that case, but we are relying on him. or her.
And on the different data sources being available and coming into there, right? So it's talking AI is simple, but making it work actually in real life in a complex setting where you have different industries that really need to come together, right? Is a different ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, one example is, for example, I mean, we have silos, and you can effectively measure what's inside of there, but then we also have like huge stockpiles of material, and you would need to know like how much is on there. And we have like also emerging technologies like measuring with 3-dimensional cameras and stuff like that. But I mean, is it precise? That is the question. And do I need the precision in the end to make like a really solid decision? That is really the question. I mean, in the end, it's still the world that we're looking at, and this can be very imprecise at times.
To wrap this up a little bit from the user perspective, what are your core users? What are people using Planner telling you? What are they most happy about?
Oh,
You had a nice quote, Daniil, last time, no?
yeah. So, like one production engineer said that at the beginning of the planner, also at the very raw stage of the product, that if the tool will emerge to what our plans were at that point of time, he will never would like to retire. So it was we liked it very much. Yeah? But our users are mainly the production supervisors. You talk here about grinding engineers for cement and raw mills, kiln engineers, control room operators who are actually operating the plant and who observe the performance of the equipment, like kiln. It's always running, so it should be monitored. And we have also energy managers, salespeople, now also salespeople using our forecast, which we provide, because for them it's also the input, and they cross-check with their data what we are forecasting, just based on machine learning. And in the future, it will be more. It will be more going to the portfolio management. So the people who are designing what actually should be cement, with the view on the environmental impact of this cement, which should be my components of the product. So you go here in the direction of quality. And then where you talk about the energy cost, so production cost and quality, it's everything comes together also for longer term decision making, like what should be my product portfolio, what should be my my targets, what cement types I should push more for my customers. So it's from the operational level we are now on the production and supply and delivery. We are going more through tactical to the to strategical level of the decision making in cement production.
What are you most proud about in this project, looking back at 1 year? Maybe from research to design to product ownership. Each one of you.
I'm proud that I can still gather a lot of information that I did not even think existed. So it's still possible for us to dig into corners where it's still black for us, pitch black for us.
Okay, so I'm proud that we, in the time that I'm here, which is not too long, like a bit more than 2 years, that we implemented a new pattern and we already got rid of it again. So we saw that it was not the best, mainly.
I'm proud especially for trust of the users. So they are now our counter partners with whom we are developing the tool. They help us a lot. For example, in the days with the big deploys, they test features for us. They stay a bit longer for us, for example, to help us to check that everything went smooth. So they are really part of the development team, and it was not the same at the beginning, and it was over time that we could win this trust, and I'm very happy about that.
Well, and I hope it will help you to attract more young employees. And even though you said, Dani, that people don't want to retire anymore after they saw the product, maybe that's not part of your goal, but that's really something positive to hear. Last question. You're in the construction industry. You now won a UX Design Award. Is this being recognized? How did this change for you? Did this change anything for you in the company? or in the industry maybe?
I mean, for us, it's also like an argument that we have like a very young digital team. So we are all ambitious. We all want to solve problems. It's not like we are, let's say, kiln engineers and we did now a different job in the later stages of our career. No, we basically had this whole digital department built up, and for each of the many new faces that we see in our department, we have like one argument more where you should join us.
Right, so this is, pardon, Daniil.
Yeah, I wanted to say that it's also followed by excitement here in the development team and also in the management team, design UX team. So everybody was happy about this news. No? I also have here in my room, if you see on the top here, the plate of the UX award. So it's always here showing what we achieved. Yeah, but actually we are very happy about this.
Well, this is what we hope that the award is about. It's about the recognition of your work, and the recognition inside the company is just as important as for the outside world, I think, or maybe for your work even more important. So dear Sarah, Dani, and Florian, thank you so much for your presentation and your thoughts and for laying out in the short time that we have such a complex project. And I think you have a lot more to work on, but I see you all extremely excited and positive about this, even though you might struggle sometimes with the amount of information or still non-digitization in your industry, but you're on the right track, I guess. It was a pleasure to talk with you. And congratulations for this great application. Congratulations also for this award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
And thanks to everybody for joining us now. If you missed anything, the recording of this talk will be, of course, live on, recorded after it's been live on LinkedIn and on our website in 1 or 2 days. So please join us again next Wednesday. Actually, it will be our first UX conversation with jury member and product design leader Amber Lundy. And she will be sharing insights about how to design for AI-driven experiences. Our conversation will be streamed on March 29th. You can register on LinkedIn and on our website, uxdesignawards.com. So if you want to learn more about the awards or other events, please have a look. And mark your calendar for what's coming up. This said, I'm wishing you a great day to every you out there. Good morning, good evening, happy day, and a great rest of the week.